Hey guys, it's me, and you know what time it is. It is another episode of Balance and Breakthroughs. And I have a question to ask, or a thought. There are moments in life that really break you, not in a loud, dramatic way, but sometimes in a quiet, sacred unraveling of everything you thought you knew about love, faith, and what it means to really keep going. What do you do when the person you love the most is slipping away? And
Mm,
you're still expected to show up and hold it together and somehow keep grinding, keep smiling, and keep living. Today's conversation isn't just about grief, it's
mm,
about the courage and the faith under pressure when you're losing everything and everything has been flipped upside down. It's about making the choice when the world expects you to fall apart. Because sometimes healing doesn't look like mourning in black.
mm,
Sometimes it looks like choosing red.
mm.
So today I want to welcome you to Balance and Breakthroughs. And I am your host, of course, Wil Singleton. And tonight I have a very special guest, Rachel Kerr Schneider, author, speaker, and the powerful voice behind The Widow Who Chooses Red.
Mhm.
And I cannot wait to hear this story. So if you have ever lost anyone or are going through any kind of grief,
Mm,
this is the episode for you. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it.
mm.
Welcome to the show, Rachel.
Wow, Will, that was quite an introduction. And as you were saying those lines, I thought about the fact that I think sometimes our hearts are broken on purpose so that
Mm,
we can love more
yeah, yeah.
differently. And I also think about the person that is suffering. And I think about what it takes for them to go through the journey too. And it's hard for both the caregiver and the person that they're caring for. And it just made me think. It's taken me down. You just took me to a place very, very easily. And I haven't been there for a while. My husband's been gone for 14 years, and yet
Hmm.
isn't it amazing how we're gifted with this thing called memory
Yeah,
that can take us to very happy things and very sad things in just
yeah,
it can be a word, it can be music, it can be a smell or taste, and we can go there just
yeah.
so fast.
It's amazing how it can
It
hurt
is.
and heal at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
So thank you for that. I will jump into this conversation anywhere that you would like to. Will.
Okay, all right. Well, then, my first question is your story is rooted in love, loss, and faith.
Mm,
But before we get into the book, who are you today in this season of your life?
mm. Well, I'm a 63-year-old gal who's wondering every day how I got to be 63. And thinking because I surely don't feel like it, but wow, having both my parents still alive at 88, I'm like, this is amazing. Obviously, I have some good genes here. But I am at the core the person that I've always been. I just have been maybe knocked around by life a little more. I
Hmm.
have some more experience. I've learned to trust myself and I've learned to adapt. Um, I believe that my part of our journey is always about evolving and changing. And I'm still doing that. I still have things that I want to do. And and at my core, I'm still this fun-loving, faith-filled Southern gal who loves sweet tea.
Who doesn't love sweet tea?
I don't know, maybe the dentist. I don't know.
Right, right, probably.
So that's who I am and who I continue to be.
Okay, okay. So you've lived through profound grief and transformation. What would you say was the biggest misconception people have about strong women of faith?
Oh, I think they think that it's easy. I think they
Mm.
think that it's easy. And oh, it's, I think a lot of people thought that about me at the time. They think that Rachel has such faith, it's easy. And I want to share a story with you that totally kind of shifted things for me. After my husband got this diagnosis, I realized that I was going to need some help. I sought out a faith-based therapist because
Mhm.
I had never helped anybody die before. I knew that I was still going to be here with two young boys, and I wanted to make sure that I helped John finish well, and that both of us were communicating and really doing the best that we could to
Mhm.
take care of each other through this journey. So I walked into her office one day and I said, I don't understand what's wrong with me. I'm not sleeping. I'm anxious. I'm not eating. I don't understand this because I do have faith. I know who's in charge. So
Mhm.
shouldn't this be easier? Shouldn't this be easier? Absolutely. I know who's in charge. And she looked over at me, and Will, it was priceless. She looked at me and she goes, Rachel, she goes, Jesus was a man. Yes. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
She said Jesus had 12 guys helping him.
Mhm.
I said, she goes, you're not Jesus. And you might need some help. And I'm
Yeah.
like, wait a second. Wait a second. And then, Will, I thought about the fact that Jesus, being who he was, the Son of God, he didn't need those guys.
Mhm.
He
Mhm.
didn't need them, but he chose them
Yes.
and asked them to come along with him
Mhm.
on this journey. And we all know that those disciples, they were a tough lot. They
Yeah.
didn't
Oh yeah.
exactly.
Oh yeah. They were real people with real issues. I would have been
Yes.
a great disciple.
Well, you are. It's just that Jesus just isn't quite here
Yeah.
in flesh,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it did make me think about those guys probably caused more problems than they cured. And
Mhm.
yet he did not. He took the help he got.
Mhm.
He accepted it with grace, being the person that he was,
Mhm.
and and we were left in a better place because of their experience with him, right? When
Yeah.
when they got caught with that Holy Spirit, they were on fire,
Mhm.
literally through spread the word.
Mhm.
I don't who am I who do I have? I don't need to. I don't need to lie and say this is easy. Or if people think it is, or they're looking at me thinking that it is, that's not true. So I really learned to accept help as people could give it and let
Mhm.
go of the expectation, because I think that's the other thing, Will, is we get into places where I can only accept this kind of help from this person, or they have to give it to me this way. And we put all these conditions on things. So I have to tell you another story in that we had this cooler outside that people could leave meals, right? And my
Mhm.
my 10-year-old thought it was a magic cooler because food just showed up.
Right.
Jake thought that was the funniest. He called it the magic cooler. Like there's food. So I one day this gal dropped off a meal and she dropped off a cobbler with it and some ice cream. And she said, you got to put the ice cream, get the ice cream in there. I said, okay, fine. I'll put the ice cream in there. So we had the meal and we were having the cobbler and I went to get the ice cream. And Will, I opened up the gallon of ice cream and it was already halfway eaten.
Mhm. Mhm.
So- and I'm like, okay, well, obviously she really wanted us to have ice cream
Right.
with the cobbler to the point that whether or not she had checked to look, I don't know. I didn't say, oh, it's got cooties, we can't eat it. I dished it out and I just said, you know what? It still makes me smile because she was so she just wanted the meal to be complete.
Mhm.
And so you take our ice cream,
Mhm.
whether she knew it or not. And I just thought that is someone who's just putting it all out there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-mm. When I hear about the great faith and strong women, I think people forget that you can't have great faith or great strength without great trials and tribulations. That's what makes great faith. And that's what builds the core character within Christ, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
And being able to ask for help and receive help. I mean, all that is part of it. Because if it was easy, then everybody would be doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And who are we to think, Will, based on what we saw Jesus go through
Hmm.
with all the suffering, all of the humiliation, all of the torture, everything he went through, he didn't have to do that. He knew it, and he knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thankful that I really don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know what's coming tomorrow, but he knew.
Hmm.
And who are we to think that we're going to get through this life without a modicum of suffering? It's
Yeah.
going to happen,
Hmm.
but it won't be wasted. It
No.
will it
No.
is designed, as you said, to strengthen our faith and also to give us the opportunity to help somebody else
Hmm.
along the way
Hmm.
and to hopefully strengthen their belief as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think our only fault is sometimes we make it look easy. Just because we're smiling. Yeah. Just because I might look good. I mean, I think I would be called the messy disciple if I were in the Bible. Because he made it look good, but on the inside he was a crazy mess. But that's
Exactly.
what makes the story. That's what makes the testimony.
You're right. But Will,
Hmm.
too, the other thing that you have that we all have is we also have this profound, because of our belief, we've got this joy that
Mm.
cannot, as you said, you're taking it in every day and sharing it. You want to see teeth. You
Yeah.
want to see a smile. And you've got that in your DNA. It is there.
Yes.
And so it is a spark that can create just it can light a fire in
Hmm.
others, and you have no idea how you will be used. And so I think too that somehow or another that's been poured into you through maybe family, through your faith formation, through the things that you've gone through, the life experiences. And I'm real clear in letting people know happiness, no, I'm not happy all the time. Are you kidding me?
Mm.
But this joy
Hmm.
and this gratitude that feeds that joy, or the joy feeds the gratitude. I don't know. Maybe they feed each other.
Yeah.
But I just know, and I have witnessed that, we're not promised tomorrow.
Mm-mm.
There are people who won't get up in the morning. And that
Hmm.
is the first thing in the morning when I wake up, I'm like, thank you, Lord. You've gifted me another day.
Hmm.
Help me do with it what you want me to do.
Absolutely.
And that is just, I just think that is just so key to how we make the choices and how we make the decisions that we do.
Mm, mm, mm. So, in your journey with your husband's ALS diagnosis,
Mm.
was there a moment where everything shifted for you spiritually or even emotionally?
I Yes, the short answer is yes. The long answer is I had no idea what this was. I had
Mm,
never heard of ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease.
hmm.
And around the world, it's called motor neuron disease. I didn't know about any of it. And that's not unusual because there are only about 30,000 people in the United States that currently have it.
Mm,
And there are between 5 and 6,000 that will be diagnosed with it this year. So on the scale of disease, put that next to an Alzheimer's at 9 million.
hmm.
Okay, so you can see it's a very small community. I didn't know anybody with it. They still have no known cause, and there's still no known cure. And I think for me, hearing from the doctors, there's nothing we can do. I'm like, wait a minute. We live in America. I'm at the Mayo Clinic, the mothership of medicine. Are
Right.
you kidding? You're telling me seriously
Hmm.
nothing, no thing, zippo. And
Hmm.
they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And the interesting thing is that the way that they treat this, they have a clinic, Will, that you show up every 3 months and then you sit there all day and they test all of the systems. There is not one piece of it. I hope it's changed by now, but when we were there was not anybody checking in on John's mental health.
Hmm.
And you think about getting a diagnosis of terminal illness. You've got 2 to 5 years.
Hmm.
And here's what I know is that there are people who make a decision, they see what's ahead of them, and they choose not to go down the end of that road. I don't judge. I do believe, how we enter and how we exit, I do believe are up to our creator. But I understand that sometimes there are people who don't have faith, who don't believe the same way. Eric Dane, who just died several weeks ago, the actor from Grey's Anatomy
Hmm.
at 53 years old. I believe that he may have made a different choice because he didn't have faith. He believed it would just be lights out. And he stated, if I can't talk to my girls and I can't move, I'm done.
Yeah.
So I don't know how people get through the difficulties in their life without faith, or but they do.
Hmm.
Somehow they do. And I just know that for me, what I realized is that all of the protocols of religion
Hmm.
were not important anymore. It was my relationship. It was me being able to get on my knees and cry and wail and just say, "Okay, Lord, I don't know how to do this.
Hmm.
I don't know how to do this." And I think for the longest time I was just like, "You have to show me. You have to show me how." I will tell you too, Will, I did think for a while, at least 2 years, that if anybody was going to be healed of ALS, that it would be my husband, John. Not because of anything I did, but I just thought we have a God that
Hmm.
can heal anybody. We all know of miracles.
Hmm.
People get healed of things all the time.
Yeah.
And yet, so that kept me going for a while.
Hmm.
And then at the beginning of the third year, I realized I'm like, this is not going to end the way that I had hoped that it would.
Hmm.
And then then I had to just kind of go, okay, Rachel, this isn't God's going to
Yeah.
heal him, but it's going to look very differently than
Yeah.
him staying here.
So, I've gone, I mean, I think we've all who have been living life have gone through serious trials. And I remember a moment in my life where there was a shift in my prayer life where I was literally praying out of self-pity, and it shifted from that to purpose. Was there a moment like that for you?
I think the moment for me just became, I just started having regular conversations with Jesus.
Okay.
I just
Okay.
started, I just started, I would just, and it's to the point that John, my husband, would look over at me. I could be doing something and he'd just hear me kind of mumbling or kind of
Hmm.
talking. And he'd
Hmm.
go, "Who are you talking to?" I go, I'm talking to Jesus. He goes, "Really? About what?" I said, "About you, about the boys, about our life. I just need a minute." And I remember too, I said to John once, I said, I'm a little jealous. I said, I'm the one that has all this biblical knowledge. I'm the one that grew up in this, I mean, I was in church Sunday, Monday,
Hmm.
Tuesday, Wednesday,
Hmm.
all day. Um, and I said, you get to go meet Jesus before me. And he just kind of looked at me like, what are you talking about? But I was just like, when you hold that kind of belief, right?
Hmm.
It just kind of, it does, it does bring some comfort to some degree.
Hmm.
And people that don't have it don't understand that. And yet, my prayer life just became, I was talking to Jesus all the time.
Mm,
And this is before we have all of these apps now. This is before social media blew up like it did. This is before all of this. I mean, I'd be lucky if I could read a verse, in between taking care of John and the kids and all of the responsibilities. If I could pull something up on my phone, I was doing good. But usually my worship time was in the morning before I got out of bed, and then at night after I crawled into bed. And then, like I said, all during the day, just conversations about everything, everything.
wow. Okay. Okay. Is that what you meant when you were talking about it in your work, how you keep living when the person you love the most is dying? Or was there more to it?
Well, I think here's what we know too, Will. Illness is very isolating
Mm,
for the
hmm.
whole family. It can be very isolating. And my two boys, because they were so young, they forced me to have to get out. And John, as long as he could in the wheelchair, he did until he couldn't. But I think one of the things, it's realizing that self-care component, it's not being selfish. It's just,
Mm,
we were talking about it before. It's
yeah,
it's just it's necessary.
absolutely.
And more than once people say you're the leader of the expedition. And if the expedition goes down, the whole expedition fails, right?
Hmm.
And when you've got, little people counting on you, the boys, yes, their dad was sick, but they still had school, they still had baseball or football or practices or concerts or whatever it was. And it's when we got this diagnosis and I looked at him and I said, okay, honey, what is it that you want to do? We've all heard about let's make a bucket list and da 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 da. Yeah. And I'm like, what is it? Let's do it. While
Mm,
you still can, let's do it because we've got a finite window. And he looked at me and he just said, Rachel, I just want to live as normally as I can with you and the boys for as long as I can. He was a man of very simple, simple
yeah.
means. Me, I would have said, I want to go around the world. I want to see the seven wonders of the world. I'd like to know what it's like to, dress in a whole
Hmm.
Chanel outfit. I don't know. I would have had some other things, but that was it. And so for John just being, in the routine of our life, and so to keep on living while somebody is dying, you have to be intentional because you can get sucked into a deep dark place
Hmm.
really easily, and you have to keep I won't say fighting, but some days it can be a struggle
Mm,
because there were days when I just wanted to stay in bed, and I don't want to deal. I didn't sleep well, or John had a bad night or something. I'm like, no, I got these two little people. They
mm,
need lunches. They need to get to school. We got to get to the bus,
hmm.
whatever it might be. So it it didn't let me, those two little boys, I think, kept me
Hmm.
in that normal, in
Right.
that normal for a while. I
Okay.
had to deal with the trauma of them not having dad. That came, I don't think I realized, Will, what trauma they were going through at the time.
Hmm.
And that manifested after their dad was gone, and which is what the second book is about.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, were there lessons that you gained through this experience that
Mm.
you would have never gained any other way?
Without a doubt. And probably the most important was in communication. My husband and I had a good marriage. We were a
Hmm.
good team. We were
Hmm.
a good partnership. But I realized that I think I held back in some ways, in
Hmm.
some things. I don't think that I never let him really see me really sad. He never really saw me, cry or really mad. There was a lot that I just kind of held within because I just didn't think that it would be helpful, I suppose. So what I know now, I mean, and if I had worked on my marriage as hard as I did the last 3 years in communication and in empathy and compassion, I think I could have had so much more. There could have been so
Hmm.
much more. So that was a huge lesson in I am married now to a widower that I met who lost his wife 6 months after John died. Tara
Hmm.
passed of breast cancer. I am I am not afraid to 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 say the things or to cry ugly or to say I don't really want to tell you this, but he has four girls, and my
Hmm.
biggest concern was that, and this is true for second marriages, is that a lot of reasons that they don't make it is because the person puts the children first
Hmm.
instead of the partner, right?
Right.
And that was my biggest fear. He's got four girls. I have two boys. I had never been around. So, and I spent a lot of time in therapy. Even my therapist was like, Rachel, I can't believe you and Kevin, you actually did it. We dated 10 years though, long distance, Wil. I had to know. I had to know. And I do now. And so I'm not afraid of the hard conversations with my kids,
Hmm.
with Kevin, um, because I understand. I also couch them with grace and mercy
Hmm.
and truth, but there are conversations and things now that I do differently because of the lessons that John taught me.
So you learned a whole new dimension of what it really means to be strong.
Wow. That's one way. That is one way of saying it. I don't think I've ever
Yeah.
really I don't think I've ever really thought about it
Well, because a
in
lot of
that.
people look at strength as being stoic and not showing our vulnerabilities and not communicating and not asking for help. But really, true strength is everything you're doing now.
I've never really thought about it that way. I and thank you for that because I just feel like that I don't want to deprive whatever time I might have left here. I
Hmm.
want to make sure that the people who are so important to me, that there's no that there it's all left out on the field, right?
Hmm.
And that can be a little messy and it can be a little uncomfortable,
Absolutely.
but I needed John and we got to that place. I think the thing too, Wil, is that people get so busy. There's a difference between achievement and fulfillment. And
Absolutely.
when you're in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s, it is achieve, achieve, achieve. And you think that the achievement's going to bring the fulfillment.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then when we get a little older, we realize okay, the achievements were terrific, but I'm not necessarily fulfilled. And I really want if I can help all of these kids who have through the trauma of losing a parent, if I can help them in kind of figuring some of these things out sooner than
Hmm.
later, that's what I want for them. I mean, I didn't realize, Wil, for the first 2 years, all of our kids thought they were in fear that they could lose their other parent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't realize that that was actually something that crossed their mind, but the reality was, yeah, if it could happen to one, it
Yeah.
could happen to the other, right?
Hmm.
So, as much as I thought I was going to write this book and develop my platform and be out there inspiring women and all this stuff, it was like, wait a second. I've got these other two boys. I've got these kids. I'm the only one here. And, God just had a way of saying, Rachel, you need to be here. And that the oldest went down that road of addiction. So I was that once again, didn't know anything about drugs, didn't know anything about any addiction, and found myself having to learn a whole new protocol. And here I was we knew we couldn't do anything for John.
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
knew that. And then on the other side, I'm throwing everything but the kitchen sink at my other son, at John, my other John, because I was desperate to see, to fix him, to cure him, to heal him.
Hmm.
And ultimately, as he reminds me today, Mom, I appreciate all of that you did, but ultimately I had to make I
Yeah.
had to make the choice.
Hmm. Wow. Wow. How did that feel when he told you that?
Okay, well, first of all, Will, I'm like, wow, I could have saved a lot of money. I could have, really, John, do you know? I mean, seriously,
Right, right.
but I mean, here's the thing, Will, we didn't know 15 years ago, we didn't have the awareness about kids,
Mm,
mental health, trauma, grief. We just didn't know.
hmm
And I had counselors who, you know, after several months of therapy, they'd say, "Oh, you know what? I really don't have that much experience with grief or
hmm
death,
hmm
with kids." And I'm not kidding, Will. We did everything. I mean, I was living in Minnesota, the home of Hazelden.
Right.
Everybody's heard of Hazelden. We were inpatient, we were outpatient, we were, I mean, I was even trying to get him arrested, thinking if he got put in jail, he'd get scared straight. And the officer's like,
Right.
ma'am, he's only 16. We don't want anything on his record. He's just selling some weed. I'm like, I mean, I was just, I mean, and my dad being a military man, when my son played the suicide card, and of course,
hmm
you never know. I'm not making light of that at all.
No.
But I was like, really, John? So my dad says, okay, if he's going to be on suicide watch, this is how my dad in the military, when they did suicide watch, you literally just sat there with the person and watched them. You
hmm
literally, so he put John at the table. He sat on one end of it and John sat at the other. And he said, okay. I go, what are you doing? He goes, this is suicide watch. And my son, after about, 8 hours of that, was like, okay, I don't think I'm really, yeah. So when you say, how did I feel? Well, of course I'm like, great. But here's what I'll tell you too. I mean, John made that decision. I will never know exactly what drove him to do that. I think I'm hopeful maybe one day I will, but at this point it's not important. He's 29 now. He's been sober for 7 years. He's got two kids. He's engaged. He's got a great job.
Nice.
He's doing great. And he and Jake both have contributed to this second book. I'm learning a lot about what was going on. They're old enough now to where they can look back at some of this and put it into words
Mm, mm,
about what was going on. And that to me, there's been some validation. There's also been some surprises.
mhm.
But I think all of us who have dealt with a loved one who has addiction, it is there's a desperation there. And of course, when you're a parent and it's a child who's still underage, you're working against the clock because
Right.
when they hit that 18,
hmm
that's it. And so here's the kicker. We did the full-on intervention and he ended up going to Pennsylvania. And he was there. He goes, Mom, don't drink the Kool-Aid. I'm only doing it for 10 days. 10 days, that's it. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. So he was there. He ended up, Mom drank the Kool-Aid and kept handing over the charge card. I'm like,
hmm
okay, great. And I went to get him 3 months later, 90 days later.
hmm
And he goes, I'm getting out tomorrow. He goes, I've signed an NDA. I can't tell you who I'm in therapy with until tomorrow, but it's a pretty big deal. And I'm like, oh, okay, because I'm going to be
Okay.
so impressed, right? Now, remember, I have a younger son who's all about football. Jake's dream was to, play in the NFL. We're here
hmm
in South Lake, Texas, because, it's got a great football program, Friday Night Lights, the whole thing. So John gets out the next day and he says, yeah, we get home and Jake is there and he goes, yeah, I was in counseling with Johnny Manziel. Jake looks at him and goes, did you get me an autograph? John's like, no, man, that would not be cool. That would not be cool. You don't do that stuff when you're in a therapy session. I'm like, great. He's in there with Johnny Football. Seriously? What
Yeah, yeah. It
what
wasn't the corrective measures you thought it would be.
no. Now, here's what I will say. I think if Johnny Manziel had drunk the Kool-Aid and stayed longer than, 30 days,
Hmm.
but you can't, Johnny was, an adult. So
Hmm.
he made his
Hmm.
own decisions. But my youngest was like, yeah, did you get me an autograph? I just thought, okay, that's just,
So, so, so when you wrote your book,
yes.
The Widow Chooses Red, how did your sons react to the book?
Yeah, Will, I'd love to tell you that they've read it. They're like, Mom, okay. I mean, they're on the cover, they're on the front
Right,
cover.
right. I see him on
It's
the
the pic-
cover.
yeah, it's the picture that was taken as we were headed to
Hmm.
their dad's celebration of life. They're
Hmm.
both wearing one of their dad's neckties. No, I think they'll read the second book because they will have contributed to it. But the first one, and I did it, my hope and prayer, Will, this is the story of me and their dad.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so how we met, our life before them,
Hmm.
all of that. And I wanted to get it down on paper first of all. I'm hopeful that at some point they will read it. I mean, my brother, here's the thing, and I'm not going to lie to you. This was my dream.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think my parents have read it, and I
Hmm.
think they've enjoyed it. Um, and my mother-in-law, she loved it. But I think too, most importantly was that I wanted to have some kind of a documentation of what it was like, because even now, um, it's just important that they can see their dad, read about their dad in a different light.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So, I got to ask,
Okay.
why? I mean, the title alone says so much, but take us to that moment. Like, why did you choose red?
So here's the other thing, Will. This whole celebration of life thing, remember, we're going back 14, 15 years ago. It
Right.
wasn't the thing that it is today.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
were still back in the day going to funerals and memorials.
Mm-hmm.
Very somber, very
Mm-hmm.
sober.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I knew. I knew we were going to have a ton of kids there because of my boys. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they bussed the kids out of school. Jake was fifth grade, John was ninth grade. They sent
Mm-hmm.
buses so that kids could come. I did have parents calling me though, going, is he going to be laid out? I said, no, he's cremated. There's a picture. Don't worry about that. I chose red specifically because it's the color of love. It's the color of passion, and it's the color of fire. And in the Bible, in Acts, the day of Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit comes upon all of those people, it's in the form of a flame, right? There's a flame that's
Yeah.
dancing over that
Yeah.
people could see.
Yep.
And for me, I wanted to celebrate the life that John and I had, and the fact that we are all gifted with this supernatural superpower in front of us, in each of us, in
Mm-hmm.
the form of the Holy Spirit. And so for me, red was a way to honor that. It wasn't like okay, look at me, da da da. It
Mm-hmm.
was just my way of being able to acknowledge
Mm-hmm.
all the good that John brought into this
Mm-hmm.
world.
Yeah.
And so but interestingly enough, Will, I didn't speak. I did not speak at his service. The boys did, my dad did, his dad did. I mean, his sister did. I was like, you know what? Everything that I needed to say to my husband or about my husband it's out there.
Yeah.
It's out there. And I wanted these people, the boys recited a poem called The Dash. There's a QR code in the book that takes you. I had the wherewithal. Now it's the norm to do a video or to videotape the service or live stream it. People were doing that during COVID and all
Mm-hmm.
kinds of things. I had the wherewithal because once again, I wanted to have this record for my children to bring in a videographer. He'd never done anything like it before.
Mm-hmm.
He came in and videotaped the whole service, and then the party that we had later that night, which is still one of the best things ever because the boys get to hear stories about their dad from people other than me, which is
Nice.
so important.
Nice. Now, mind you, I have probably, I know you probably won't believe this, but I've always been kind of rebellious and
No,
yeah,
you
yeah,
a
I know. I
renegade?
know. I
No,
know. Yeah,
Will.
crazy. And I love the choice of you wearing red to a funeral, even back then, because we're both from the same generation.
Yeah.
Um, but was there a cost for your bold, unconventional choice to choose the way you loved and represented your husband?
Well, if there was, nobody mentioned it. I didn't hear a word from anybody.
Really?
And it's funny you should bring that up. I didn't have anybody, and maybe it's because, I didn't speak. Or maybe people were too intimidated. Maybe they didn't real. I don't. That's a great question, Will, because no, I got no blowback. I got no questions.
Nobody gave you a look or anything.
Well, if they did, I didn't even see it. I didn't even see it. And maybe that's part of it too, is that I just had been so focused on that, creating something that the boys would be a part of, and that everybody who wanted to speak about John could. I mean, the pastor was even like, "Oh my gosh," he looked at the list of people speaking. He's like, "I'm gonna have to pack a lunch." I said,
Hmm.
"No, don't worry." I go, "No, I let the boys." So we had this luncheon after the service, and then
Hmm.
we had something later that night. So I let the boys pick. I said, "We're gonna have lunch at the church afterwards. What should we have?"
Hmm.
What do you think a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old boy would pick?
Chocolate, Twinkies, I don't know what.
Pizza.
Oh, pizza.
Pizza. I can't even tell you. I must have had, I don't even know, 150 pizzas delivered to the church. Yeah.
Okay, okay, all right.
So it was it was a very kid friendly. I mean, as much as you can make. I think the thing for a lot of parents is that they probably hadn't ever taken their kids. I mean, and you're talking younger,
Mhm.
to something like this. So it was important that we really made sure that we focused
Mm.
a lot on John's life
Yeah, yeah.
rather than the brutal way in
Hmm.
which he died. And so I think that objective
Okay.
was achieved.
So if you would have spoken at the funeral, what would you have said?
Well, I think that's why I ended up writing the book, right? Because I probably had too much to say. I probably had too much to say. And here's the thing too. I people because John and I just he was so private, Will.
Mm,
He was
hmm.
such a private guy. He didn't, I mean, he just, and once again, I have an uncle right now who has ALS, and
Hmm.
and I can see the isolation is starting, right? He doesn't want anyone, you become so self-conscious, your body is just deteriorating, right? And
Mm,
people can't understand you're trying to speak. I get all of that. And I think the what I probably, I mean, I would have, trust me, everything I would have said, I think was covered in some way, shape, or form.
hmm.
Um, I don't know. Did I need to stand up there and tell people how much I loved him or how special he was or what our life together was like? I- No, I think I was just still in that place of like, okay, I knew that I could raise these boys without him, but I also knew too, Will, the one thing that he wanted more than anything in this world was to watch his boys grow up and become young men.
Mm,
And that was we had our 20 plus years together,
hmm.
but he was not going to get that
Mm,
with those boys. So for them to be able, and it's for them to be able to be up there and share that poem and talk about their dad. And we had little wristbands made, so they were encouraging everybody to get one and remember their dad. um that to me, that just said more about the essence and the legacy of John,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
than anything I could have added. Instead, I just decided to write a whole book, and I'm sure he's just like, you had to do that, right? You just had.
So is that where Spirited Prosperity was born out of, or how did that come to be?
Yeah, spirit. So for me, the Holy Spirit, I've mentioned that before. I just believe that out of the triune God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, the Holy Spirit, I think, it's shortchanged because
Mm,
we just don't hear about him as much as we do God the
hmm
Father and God the Son, and yet he's just as present and just as powerful.
hmm
But for me, spirited prosperity is a way of life. And it's about inviting that Holy Spirit into every part of your life so that all of it has a prosperous nature to it. Back in the day, prosperity was only related to finances, right? You thought if somebody
hmm
had prosperity, they were financially set. But now, we want prosperity in our health, in our emotional well-being, in our spiritual well-being, in our relationships. Prosperity to me just covers all of the pieces of our life. And I want people to just be reminded about how, with that Holy Spirit being invited in on all of that, how you can live a life of spirited prosperity. So
hmm
that's where that came from. And the tagline of putting the I back in spirit is, you can't have spirit without I. And it's not about being selfish. It's about what we've noted with the self-care, but how do you do that in healthy and holy ways?
hmm
Because we've all been down that road where we've tried to fill this hole in ourselves with things
hmm
that aren't so good for us. And we
hmm
make the mistake of thinking that it's going to work, and it doesn't. And so I want people to just be more aware, become more aware. And sometimes when you're in that grind of your 30s and your 40s, you you forget. You
Yeah.
just flat out forget. And so or what you think is working isn't. And so that's where putting the I back in spirit came
hmm
from, because I want people to know how to do that um, in a healthy and holy way.
Yeah, I think you talk about tapping into the Holy Spirit as a reservoir.
Yes.
How do you teach people that, who have
Well,
heard of it but don't know how to do that?
exactly. And it is kind of a hard thing to get a grasp of. I realize that every time somebody asks me this question, because it's like, how do you relate something to them that they might have never experienced it? And I
hmm
think the way that I can get people to most be aware of it is to acknowledge we all have some kind of inner intuition or inner dial that kind of relays to us when things are off,
hmm
when we should
hmm
do something, or when we should something. There's usually some component inside of us that says this is a good idea or not a good idea, or the thought that comes to us that just keeps coming to us, or that person that crosses our mind, like maybe I should reach out to them. We have all experienced something like that. And when we do, that's when I tell people that if you don't know the Holy Spirit, that's the closest that I can that help you understand that is that spirit inside of you saying, okay, that's giving you the okay, the go ahead, or saying, maybe you should reconsider this. And so developing that inner awareness,
hmm
will of and being able to dial into that through prayer and meditation and conversation, it just heightens your ability to harness it.
Yeah.
And that's probably the best way that I can share it with somebody who's not aware
hmm
of it. And usually that at least gets them, they can at least put that thought together
Right.
and start to build and start to build a picture of
Hmm.
what that might be like.
Okay. 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 And that's essential for
Yes,
anyone who wants to not just survive trauma, but actually thrive from it.
exactly. And I
Hmm.
think, it's important that we fortify the things that really matter,
Mm.
and because we're really good at fortifying a lot of the things
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
the
know,
dysfunctional stuff, I'll fortify that all day long. But
ex ex exactly. So I think that we live in a world that we're so distracted
Mm,
that we all like to think we're self-aware. We all like to think that, oh yeah, I know. But even on my journey as I've gone through all of this, I found that, you know, there are things that keep changing. There are relationships that change. My attitudes can change. I can become I have much more compassion and much more empathy, I think, than I did before I went through this. But there's still hard things that I have to deal with. There's still people that still irritate me and all of those things. I'm not saying they just, it's unicorns and
not,
rainbows every
it's
day.
not kumbaya every day. Like, oh yeah.
No, but we get to choose how we get to react and respond.
Yeah.
And that's why I think when people see you doing what you do and responding the way that you do,
Hmm.
well, they're going to want to know, how do you do that? How do you get
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's all we can hope to do, right? Is
Hmm.
is is for people to look at our lives and say, I want to show up like how does he do that?
Mm.
How does he do that day after day after day? And like you
Yeah.
said, you're intentional about it. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah. And really that's how you've navigated being multiple roles, from wife, caregiver, mother, financier, all the roles, and all while your life is literally coming apart at the seams, you
Mm.
know. Yeah, which it is why, it creates strength, if we tap into that, you know.
You're right.
Hmm.
You're
Hmm.
you were right. And you
Yeah.
mentioned finances, and let me tell you, oh, and that's the other thing. If you think you've got everything buttoned up in your will, double check it, triple check it,
Yeah.
quadruple check it, because let me tell you, the last thing you want to hear is probate. It's the last word you
Mm,
ever want to hear.
mm,
And we thought we had it all dialed down. And then there was one account that John forgot about and I didn't know about. And then, oh, yeah. And I'm not the brightest bulb in the pack when it comes to
mhm,
finances, but I will tell you, I found some good people and they walked me through it and they made sure to take care of the long term.
mm.
They were able to say, okay, Rachel, you've got to go. Because one of the things I said to John is, you cannot just leave me with a pile of money.
Right,
It
right.
has to go away somewhere. I don't want to be able to get to it because,
Hmm.
you know, me and money can be good friends, and
Mm,
then there's no more. And I'm like, and that was, and I think for all of us, being aware of our relationship with money, how it works, how we get it, what we do with it,
mm,
um, is so important.
mm.
It's so very important. And Jesus talked a lot about it too. So,
Yes, yes, he did.
so
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, it said, don't be thinking, and I'm not saying you need to go give all your money to Jesus either.
Yeah.
But there is there is
He
a
he
there
didn't
is
ask for
there
all of
are
it.
yeah, I'm not dissing the people that do that. I
Right.
know there are some feel called to do that, but I do. And I've had people say, oh yeah, well, does spirited prosperity mean the prosperity gospel? I'm like, no. It is not.
Right.
That is not what I'm talking about. And we could have a whole nother conversation about that, Will, but I know an appointment at the gym. But I just it is one of those things that I think too, and as as the John always handled that, and I
Hmm.
let him, and I
Hmm.
was happy to let him. And then guess what? I had to figure it all out.
Yeah.
And that is it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
It is truly overwhelming.
I'm
Yeah.
sure. I'm sure it was. But I think some of the more overwhelming parts, I'm thinking would be the conversations you would have had to have with the kids. What was that like?
Well, I will tell you, so they had been watching their dad, disintegrate, so to say. And so he died at home. John died at home. And it was in the afternoon. They had not come home from school.
Hmm.
And I made the decision, Will, not to let them, they did not see their dad. I don't regret it. I still have a hard time with the fact that I watched the coroner put my husband in a body bag. I zipped up that zipper and said goodbye. Those are things that, I don't know how I was, 49, and it's a distressing image in your
Hmm.
head. So at 10 and 14, I wasn't sure what they were going to remember, but I wasn't sure that that was the thing that I
Hmm.
wanted for them. So they came home from school and met me down in the basement. The coroner had already come and taken John. My sister-in-law was there, and she's like, "Okay, we are getting this." I'm like, "Well, just." But there are some people that's the way they handle things. But I remember I told them, I said, "Your dad has gone to heaven." And they looked at me. Jake looked at me and he said, "You mean dad died?" And I said, "Yes, your dad is gone." And we just wept and we just hugged each other. And I, in that moment, nothing else mattered. I didn't care who was doing what. I didn't care what was being
Yeah.
done. I just wanted to be available for those boys
Hmm.
at any given minute. And that's all I needed to do. So, so I just, and them being the young boys that they were, I mean, in 30 minutes, the neighborhood knew, the kids knew, their friends came, they went outside, played football, did the things that boys do, just did the thing.
Hmm.
And then that night, it was Monday Night Football. They had always watched it with their dad. And they hate it when their mom watches football because she knows nothing. And their mother loves the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys were playing. They're like, "Oh, great. We got to watch the Cowboys with mom." I go, this is what we would be doing. This is what you would be doing with dad. So, and it's important. I kept making sure throughout all of these years
Hmm.
that I kept talking about their dad.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing that people are still, if you've lost someone, people are still uncomfortable with,
Hmm.
well, should I bring him up? Is it going to make her sad?
Yeah.
Are the boys going to be upset? And I'm like, if there's one thing I can leave people with, it's please let them make that decision. If they don't want to talk about that person, they'll let you know. But I
Hmm.
think you'll find for the most part, they are thrilled. They are
Yeah.
thrilled to talk about that person with you and
Yeah.
share a smile, a laugh, maybe
Hmm.
a tear, but
Hmm.
it's all good. So, so don't take that away. Don't take that
Mm.
away from someone.
Wow. Wow. So when you started to rebuild your life,
Mm.
from the aftermath, and you wrote the book and you started Spirited Prosperity, and I know you were taking care of your boys the whole time, because I know that's what mothers do. We go
Yep.
into mommy mode.
Yeah, I hadn't gone into, and I wasn't built to be a dad.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
that's a whole nother thing too, is that you take on this. I was never meant to be their dad, but I was
Hmm.
always trying to find these strong
Hmm.
these strong male figures to kind of pick up the slack.
Hmm.
And that was hard too, because I didn't have family that lived nearby.
Hmm.
And these other dads, they have their own families, they
Hmm.
have their own kids. So it was a rough, and John with this addiction thing, there was some spiraling there that I just wasn't
Hmm.
aware of, or I didn't know
Yeah.
how to stop it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure, and that when you're a parent, especially a single parent, all of a sudden that becomes all consuming.
Yes. Yes.
When did you start to take care of yourself and start to actually seek joy personally for yourself? And how did you work that out with the grief?
Um, okay, so here's the thing. When you've been watching someone suffer for, I don't even care how long it is, it could be a month, it could be 3 months, it could be years. There's a lot of relief when they go.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's human.
No, no, I'm
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 being
I'm I'm well
real.
aware. Yeah.
I'm
Hmm.
being absolutely real. And
Hmm.
I didn't feel bad about that. I think couldn't really grieve for me because I was so wrapped up in the fact that what the boys didn't have, that I really
Hmm.
didn't focus on what I didn't have anymore. Because the thing was, Will, I had been losing John for so long.
Mm.
And, he wasn't able to, to provide support for me
Hmm.
like he used to,
Hmm.
on so many levels, right? But I had just been losing him all along.
Hmm.
So maybe I'm not saying it wasn't still a shock the day that he died. I never heard about
Hmm.
something called actively dying. Have you ever
Hmm.
heard of that term?
No, not really.
Well, when the hospice worker or the hospice nurse tells you, okay, Rachel, he's actively dying. I'm like, what in the world does that mean? Is he going to start, is stuff going to start, he's going to start foaming at the mouth, or,
Right.
I don't know. What does that mean? Is stuff going to start blowing up out of his, I didn't,
Right.
Will, you don't know, who's heard of actively dying?
Right.
I don't know.
I guess we're all
Uh,
passively dying. I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
thank
yeah.
you. Thank you. Right? I mean, and look, we've all watched too many movies where watching these bad death scenes, right? Where people are
Yeah,
just,
yeah, right.
we've all seen that. And I'm like, well, is that what's gonna happen? And Jim, he's a great hospice nurse. He says to me, he goes, well, his organs will probably start to shut down, and you'll see some modeling in his feet or in his hands or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay. I go, but he was on a
Hmm.
breathing machine. So I'm like, all right. I go, well, how long? What are we talking? I don't know, minutes, days, whatever. He goes, well, it could take a couple of days. It could take a couple of weeks. And I'm like, okay. Well, it didn't even take 2 hours.
Wow.
It didn't even take 2 hours. And John left with no fanfare.
Hmm.
He just slipped away. He just slipped away quietly. So back to your question, I think that for me, like I said, I had all these grand plans
Hmm.
to build this platform and write this and do all those things. And yet I realized, I that was not going to be happening.
Hmm.
I am thankful for a group of women who were able to watch me and see me and look at me and say, okay, we're pulling you out. We're pulling you out for a little while.
Uh-huh.
We are going to make sure that you get a walk in, or that you get a massage in, or that
Okay.
we take you to lunch. I I think that if it hadn't been for them, and they were in all different walks of life. Some of
Hmm.
them were working, some of them weren't. Some of them were moms, some of them weren't. They all were able to like the 12 disciples. They were
Hmm.
all able to minister to me in different ways, and they all were there to offer what they could when they could. And
Hmm.
so that is probably the one thing that got me through. I also realized too that the only time I was really grieving was when I left the home, when my parents came and they were watching the boys and I was able to leave. I was able then, I think, to really process some the sheer depth of
Hmm.
what had actually happened. But I think that, as we mentioned earlier, there's so many things, so many details, so many things that still have to be taken care of. You can't just check out. You
No,
just really can't. So it's almost like a post-traumatic stress thing,
it
because I think,
is.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
I think you're right. It catches up with you later, maybe in other ways.
Well, what I've seen with a lot of people in my practice, and even at my other job working in the nursing rehab, is that the family goes through the act of dying with the resident, and if it's over time, you almost create this space of loss within ourself, and it has its own I don't know, energy, so to
Yes.
speak. And
Yeah.
you know how, on some of the paperwork, they'll see DNR, do not resuscitate, and so as they're actively dying, I see the families members sometimes actively dying too. But the thing that I love about what your friends did, because I don't think we realize we have DNR on ourselves
Yes.
because we're so used to the loss
Yes.
that your friends had to actively pull you out to get massages, to go for walks, to resuscitate you to start to actively live again.
Yeah, that's a great, that is a super way of putting that, Will. I mean,
Hmm.
that you're so right. I've never ever thought about it that way, but they did.
Yeah.
They did. They had to resuscitate me. And interestingly enough, I wasn't on any medication
Yeah.
during any of this, but my one friend who is also my doctor, she said, "Okay, it's time to put you on something." I go, "But John's dead. He died." She's
Hmm.
like, "Yeah, well, now you're going to need we need you're going to need something." And
Hmm.
I looked at her and I thought, "Okay, you're my doctor. I trust you,
Yeah.
and I'll do it." And so I just, it is. I am very, very grateful for all of the gals that were there and lended me their confidence and their support during that time, because I think I was moving through a fog.
Yeah.
I think I
Absolutely.
was just in a fog, and yet I kept thinking, "Oh, I've got this. I've got this." But there's like this, it's like a fog or a film that you think you're seeing clearly, you think you've got it all together,
Yeah.
but you're kind of operating in a surreal,
You are. You are. Yeah.
you really are. And there's a lot that can there yeah, a lot that can,
There are psychological blind spots we all have.
yes,
And
yes.
it's funny because we can have super strong faith and super strong character, but I think a lot of people don't realize what comes with that is super strong issues.
Okay, okay, I give,
So
yes.
I'm
And
gonna need help.
yeah. Yeah. And you're talking to a firstborn here,
Hmm.
okay? And
Yeah, me
John was a
too.
first, yeah, okay. And John was a firstborn, and I believe in that birth order. I don't know
Hmm.
what anybody else believes, but I do believe there's something there, and responsibility is big for me.
Yeah.
It's big for me. And doing the right thing, big for me. And John the same way. And so I do, I look back on a lot of it now, and I can see that there were areas, and I'm really, it, I couldn't sell the house immediately, so we stayed there for a while, which actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise,
Mm.
that the boys didn't have to make any more dramatic changes immediately. And we were still in a neighborhood, in a community where people knew our story. And we didn't have to go through that,
Hmm.
every time we met somebody, which invariably when we moved to Dallas, that, but we had a little more space between it, and
Yeah.
so we could share it, a little differently without quite so much pain.
Hmm.
So yes, you make a very good observation there,
Yeah.
Dr. Will.
Ah. So, last few questions.
Okay.
If your husband could see the impact of your story today, what do you think he would say?
He would be in his total John way. He wouldn't believe it. He'd be like, "Oh, why would anybody care about our story?
Hmm.
What made it so, Rachel, that was so, that was," he would be somewhat dismissive, but I think he would still, somewhere deep inside of him, I think he would be proud.
Hmm.
He, like I said, he was just such a quiet, the stoic. He was the stoic. And I think when I talk about those 3 years that we worked so hard, he was able to let those emotions finally come
Hmm.
through, Will,
Hmm.
the fear and the being scared. And that's the thing I think about dying, right? Is that
Hmm.
everybody's kind of, what's it going to feel like?
Right,
What's it going
right.
to feel like? We're more scared of what it's going to feel like than probably anything else around it. Like I said, is it going to be this horrible, big death scene, or are we just going to drift off to
Hmm.
sleep? And I think I was able to just see, I was just able to see the softer side of John that I'd been searching for,
Hmm.
that I'd only seen glimpses of, like when the
Yeah.
boys were born, or those tender moments, right? Because he was just
Hmm.
so achievement oriented and being the provider. And I think that yes, he would initially be like, "Really? You had to go tell everybody?"
Hmm.
But I think that deep down he would be pleased to know that it wasn't all for naught.
Yeah.
And that I'm probably talking about him more now, Will, than I did. I mean, all those girlfriend conversations from a million years ago where I might have ditched him a bit. Well, that's not happening now,
Right,
So,
right, right.
so I think that he would be pleased, but he probably wouldn't go on. He
Mhm.
wouldn't let me know exactly how pleased he
Mhm.
was.
And you also got to bless him by seeing another side of you during the end.
Okay, fair point.
Yeah.
Fair point. Well,
I'm listening to your story, girl. I'm hearing it.
you are. I know you are. And I'm like, I've never thought about that either. I think and here's the thing though, I mentioned how sought out that faith-based counselor. And
Hmm.
when I told him I was going to do that, his initial reaction was, are you thinking about leaving me? And
Hmm.
I said, no, John, I know if I was going to leave you, I would have done that years ago. I said, but we are at death do us part, and
Right.
death is going to part us sooner than later. And I'm going to need some help with this. But that's the other side of this too, Will. And I
Mm.
touched on it earlier, is that there are a lot of relationships that don't survive something like this.
Yeah.
And that's a reality. That's a reality. That's a reality too,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I think what happens is that they're experiencing strength the wrong way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well said. Very
Yeah.
well said. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's what happens. And
Mhm.
so my next to last question.
Okay.
What is the message you hope every listener will take from The Widow Chooses Red?
Oh, haven't we covered that? I think there are a few. I think getting me to distill it down to one. I mean, I think the thing is that we we don't get to, there are some things in life we don't get to choose. We don't get to choose. We didn't get to choose whether or not we were going to have ALS.
Hmm.
And yet we got to choose how we were going to live with it, and how we were going to die with it, and how we were going to honor John's life because of it,
Hmm.
his life and his death. And I think that the message too is that when you feel like there are so many things in your life that are
Mm,
out of control, it is so important to just acknowledge that and say,
mm,
okay, all right, and go to the one who is in control and let them and just let it
mm,
fly. Let it, whatever it looks like. I have a lot of people used to say, well, uh, did you ever ask God, why me? Why
mhm,
John?
mhm.
No, why not us? Why
Yeah.
not? I mean, seriously, I don't believe that God sits up there on his throne and says, "Okay,
Mhm.
it's the day for Will to suffer."
Yeah.
No, he
No.
doesn't.
Mm,
I don't buy into that. I don't believe that. I do believe that he lets us be challenged. You think
mm,
about Job, the story of Job,
mhm,
and how the devil had to go ask permission to throw everything he did at Job, and God said, "You can do everything but kill
mhm.
him. You
Everything.
cannot kill him."
Yeah.
And so I think that I want people to understand that we do get to choose, and there's power in that.
Mm,
There is a power in that, and we are more than the circumstances around us. And that when we are fortified and grounded, for me in my faith, that whatever else is happening,
mhm,
that I know this will not be forever.
mm,
We are not in this world forever, and i
yeah.
i want to leave it in some way a little better than I
Mm.
found it.
Yeah, I mean the whole title of my podcast is Balance and Breakthroughs,
Yes.
and it's really about going through things that would break other people down or break them apart to get to the breakthrough to actually become unbreakable, and that is your story in essence, from the woman who chooses red to the parenting to the story to all of those things that have really taken you through the fire, which is appropriate for me that you wore red.
Well,
Man.
yeah, I love the fact that now my oldest son John, who I've talked about, he's got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and
Mm,
I love the fact that his favorite word to use with them is relax.
mm,
Relax, just
mhm,
relax, you two. And I
mhm,
think sometimes we need to do a little more relaxing. And I also think, well, the other thing is about acceptance. And this
mm,
is something that my husband struggled with. He did not want to accept the fact, he was going to die. And you've
mm,
probably seen this a lot too, because people think that if they say, I'm going to die, or accept the fact that I'm going to die, that somehow we're moving it along. It's going to happen more quickly
yeah,
because
yeah.
we've come to this place of acceptance. But what it does, it just releases. It just allows for this weight
Mm,
to be released, right?
mhm, mhm.
And I don't know why, everybody says, well, he fought a good fight, or fight in the camp, fight, fight, fight. I'm like, do we have to be fighting all the time? I mean, I don't know, Will, this might be a topic for another time, but why do we think we've got to fight everything all the time?
Yeah, yeah. And there are
It
different ways to fight. There's
yes,
different,
thank
it,
thank you.
yeah, it doesn't
Thank
have
you.
to be aggressive,
Thank
you
you.
hear the Rocky music.
Yeah,
It can be the quiet woman that sits on the bus and doesn't want to move.
exactly.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
But
Mm,
I think there's something in acknowledgement and acceptance that we think of as a weakness,
mm,
and that doesn't necessarily have to be so either.
mm, 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 mm. Well, I I can't thank you enough for being on the show. I loved this conversation.
Well, I have enjoyed it. We have explored and been a lot of places, and I love what you're doing, and it's kudos to you. Godspeed
Thank
as
you.
you continue to to
Hmm.
to build your platform. I know I'll do whatever I can to
Thank
to
you.
help further your message as well. And you just keep spreading the joy and sharing the light, because you've got it. You
I'm
have it.
working it. I'm working it, girl.
Good.
So,
Good.
to everybody who's watching this show, You
Yes.
know, there's something powerful when you hear a story like this because it reminds us of our darkest moments that there is still a choice. There's still a choice to keep going, to keep believing, to still keep loving, laughing, and smiling,
Mhm.
even if it doesn't look like the way we plan life to be. So some of these takeaways, like healing doesn't always have to look like it's shrinking or dying. It can look like it's expanding, or it can even look like the color red
Mhm.
because we're choosing to live again. We're choosing to actively live again. And
Mhm.
if this episode resounded with you, vibed with you, resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe with someone who might need to hear this. Because,
Mhm.
like, Rachel said, we're trying to spread this around and we're trying to bring a new revelation, a new revolution, I should say, of hope.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's
Mhm.
what it is. Because this
Absolutely.
is Balance and Breakthroughs, and we want everybody to have a breakthrough. So I am Wil Singleton, and I will see you guys next week. Love you guys. Peace.